Welcome to Authored by Us, a podcast celebrating children's books about characters of color or of different cultural experiences, and the authors who bring these diverse works to life. Each week, we invite you to join us as we turn the pages of these bookshelf gems and hear from their creators who understand that stories of diverse experience truly come to life when authored by us. Here's your host, Zenzi Hodge.
Greetings and welcome back, listeners. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Authored by Us. I vividly remember the day we brought our son home from the hospital. We were so excited that we just looked at him every minute. Clearly, he was excited too, because every time we left the room, he cried the entire night. So, like many parents, having your child sleep through the night is a blessing. But every night isn't going to be uninterrupted because there's always something that goes bump, which makes kids jump, sometimes right into your bed. Parents have devised all sorts of techniques, from spray bottles of water disguised as monster spray to arranging armies of stuffed animals to create a fortress. Disney's Pixar's Monsters, Inc. even became a brand on things that go bump in the night. And while the monsters became friendly, not all children are convinced. That is the case for young Chuka. He believes there is a monster, and he is calling for his dad and wants to know, do you see the monster under my bed? This week's author is Chinwe Mbono, and she joins us to share her book, Do You See the Monster Under My Bed? Chinwe was born and raised in Lagos, Nigeria, and graduated with a Doctor of Pharmacy degree from Ferris State University in Michigan. Chinwe enjoys spending time with her husband and two boys at their home in Georgia. Do You See the Monster Under My Bed is her first book and was just released in April. Welcome to the show, Chinwe, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. It's been really nice talking to you.
So I mentioned that your book just came out in April, like a few weeks ago. So it's truly fresh off the press. How has this process been for you?
It has been awesome. It's been incredible. The responses that I have received has been very welcoming for me. Being a new author, people's responses have been great. They've told me my story is really relatable. So it's been a very wonderful journey so far.
Well, I absolutely agree with them because I've had the pleasure of reading it and I truly enjoy it.
Thank
so
you.
Tell our listeners about your book, Do You See the Monster Under My Bed?
So my book is about a little boy who has some bedtime anxiety issues with seeing things that might or might not be in the room, and dad is his go-to person to help calm him down and get him ready for bed. So in order not to spoil the book, it's a short story. So that's the synopsis of the entire book.
Well, you said that people have told you that the story is relatable, and I absolutely agree with that because I remember being afraid of the storage area under my mom's house. So that's where my monster lived. And I was just completely terrified. So what made you decide that this would be the topic of your first book?
So I have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, and my 4-year-old is my very spontaneous, I want to say dramatic son, and he has a very wild imagination where he thinks that when it's bedtime, he might have somebody from his favorite TV cartoon come visit him. It could be Spider-Man on some days. It could be the Power Rangers. So it was just a fun way to help him understand that there's a difference between the reality and things that are imagined. So that was the basis of my story. It was me talking to my son in a visual way.
I believe that our children are our greatest and sources of inspiration. So it makes sense that this is a story modeled after your little person. So right off the bat, I was happy when I began reading because when Chuka got scared, he yelled for his dad. Sometimes it's mom who is always called, but this book was all about Chuka and his dad. And I love that. As a mom, that it's important to see that characters in the book are not always the mom that's called, that there's someone else there to do a little bit of that lifting. So why was it important for you to write a book centered around a son and his father?
I have two boys, and they relate equally between my husband and I. Most times I am the one who gets called, but sometimes my husband will stand up and take care of the issues. And many times Muna, my youngest, would wake up at night and it would be dad who would say, okay, leave mom alone. She needs to go to work in the morning. And he will go take care of what the issue is for him. So it was a way, like I said, to show him that things could be different than he imagined, and also for him to be able to relate to the story. Because sometimes he does come to me, sometimes he goes to dad, but I think it's very important to showcase the relationship between a father and a son, especially in the Black community. That's a really big factor, and I think fathers step up to the role a lot, being available emotionally and otherwise to their children. And this was a way for me to show that.
And give them a little bit of that praise. That's absolutely amazing. I noticed in your book that the only place that I saw mom was in a drawing on the wall, but everything was absolutely about Chuka and his dad. And so thank you for giving that imagery in your book, and being able to share that experience for other children.
Right.
And his dad was just amazing. He didn't say there's no such thing as monsters. So anytime Chuka called and said, hey, dad, there's a monster under my bed, he didn't say there's no such thing as a monster. Or he didn't try to deflect. He didn't say, well, let's put a nightlight in and, you'll see that there's nothing there so I can go back to bed. He was very intentional in the way he interacted with him and the monsters that he believed that he was seeing. So he took the matter head on.
Right.
Why did you have his dad find each monster and show them to Chuka?
I believe with each parent's interaction with the child, it's important not just to speak on what the issue is, but to show them what might or might not be a problem. I think children can learn in different ways. And in this story, it was important to me for the child to see that, okay, I thought I saw this, but here it is in dad's hand, and it might not be as scary or what I thought it was. And I feel like, parents have a lot of patience with their little ones, and it's not about pushing things to the side. Sometimes you have to get on your hands and knees and do the dirty work with them. So that was the inspiration for the story.
Now, as you speak of inspiration, is Chuka based on anyone? And also, can you tell us about his name? So its origin and its meaning.
Yeah. So, like I said, my youngest son, he's 4, and it was a story written for him because he's the one who experiences the nighttime visitors. Let's put it that way. So, Chuka is a Nigerian name, and it's based off of names from the eastern part of Nigeria, and it means God is great. Most of our Nigerian names are basically sentences, and sometimes we cut them short, sometimes we let them run long, but Chuka is a Nigerian name, basically.
And that's something that you and I have in common because my name is South African. So Zenzile Makiba means nut brown baby and nightingale. I'm named after South African singer Miriam Makiba.
Oh.
So tell us the meaning of your name, Chinwe.
Yeah, so my full name is Chinwendu, and it means God owns life. And so that's the long form of my name. I do go by Chinwe, which is a shorter form. Most of my friends call me Chinwe, but the full name is Chinwendu.
Now, are we going to see anything more from Chuka? Is there going to be Do You See the Monsters Under My Bed part two? Like, do you see the monsters in my closet? What's next for Chuka?
Yeah, that's the question I've gotten a lot too, and I am working on something. I have some stories in the pipeline. Chuka might not show up quite immediately, but he'll be there. He'll show up soon.
And when he shows up, we want you to come back and tell us about that.
I will most definitely come back and tell you.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. Authored by Us is made possible by listeners like you. We thank you for your support. Now back to the show.
So we're back with author Chinwe Mbono talking about her book, Do You See the Monster Under My Bed? Now, Chinwe, with children's books, illustrations are so important. They bring your words to life. So not only are your illustrations vivid, each monster that Chuka sees really looks like a monster until it's revealed. So tell us about your illustrator and how the two of you work together to bring Do You See the Monster Under My Bed to young readers.
So my illustrator, I would say, was very patient with me, being that this was my first project, and he treated my work like, I was several time published author. He worked with me to get what I needed. However, when you're working with some illustrators, sometimes there might be a difficulty in communicating um, how your picture you see in your head comes out on paper, especially when it comes to drawing ethnic pictures. And that was one of the problems that I wouldn't say it was a problem. That was one of the hurdles we had to cross to get the pictures to how you see them in the book. Because sometimes he would draw me a sketch, and it might be the hair that wouldn't turn out great. And I would have to go back and say, being an African American character, we need some kinky hair. Our hair is not full of curls and bouncy, it's a little thicker. And it was really important to me for my boys to relate to the characters they saw, because it could be a cousin, it could be a friend. I really wanted the pictures in the book to represent what they saw around them as brown people. And so, yeah, my illustrator was great. Anything that I did not like or that did not come through the way I imagined, he was happy to correct it and give me what I wanted. So I have received a lot of good comments about my illustrations being very nice and colorful and relatable. And that was what I wanted. So I'm happy about that.
I think that is truly important, because as children are reading books that now have characters who are in an experience similar to theirs, whether it's similar in their neighborhood or to their family structure, or telling a story that's relatable for them, they want to truly see themselves in that book. And they don't want to see a character who has the same color skin, but the features give away the fact that this character really doesn't look like you. And so you are correct. It is absolutely important that the illustrations in our books, if they are of a child of African descent, if it's of a child of Hispanic descent,
Right.
that they truly take on those features and they're not just painted
Right.
on the mold of something else.
Yeah, I didn't want that. I just didn't want any picture that would just be painted, color brown, and that wasn't what I wanted.
Well, I think you also have that flexibility when you are self-published,
Correct.
which you are, because you have the ability now to identify your illustrator and make some more additional decisions. So what made you decide to go the self-publishing route?
So, of course, when I started this project, I had to do research. I didn't know anything about publishing. I had to watch a lot of YouTube videos. I talked to people I met on Facebook groups, and everybody I've met and spoken with about this project has been very forthcoming with information. And so after I did my research and talked to people, I decided I needed that flexibility
Yeah.
in terms of release date, in terms of content, in terms of pricing too. I needed to keep it on my budget. So self-publishing allowed me to do all these things and still have great product. So I'm happy with my process.
And just the control over the product
Right,
that you bring forth, because you have a vision in your head.
right.
And sometimes who knows better how that should be executed than you. So
Yeah.
now, so I said this, that your book is hot off the presses. So you are probably just about a month into your book
Not
launch.
even.
And not even a month
Right.
in. So your experiences are really, really fresh. So what has been the most challenging part of your author journey? Has it been the writing, the publishing, or the promoting?
I would say promoting. I'm telling you, when you have sold to all your friends, all your neighbors, and all your coworkers, you have to break out of your circle and start looking for people. And it's like, where do I find the people? So yeah,
Mhm.
marketing is definitely a big area that I wouldn't say I didn't account for, but I did not know how difficult it would be to get it out beyond my circle. So I'm really grateful you're giving me this platform to talk about my book.
Absolutely, because I think I understand that. A lot of authors, we do understand that. We get an idea in our head. So sometimes it comes to us, in various ways, but we are able to take that idea and put it into words. And then there are resources that are available to us to figure out how to publish. Do we want to publish through a traditional publisher, through another company? Do we want to start our own publishing companies? We kind of, we can figure that out. But it's the promoting. So if I really took a poll of how many authors choose promoting, that is in the majority. Absolutely. So you're not alone. And you're right. Once you have sold to your family, because my mother will buy my book. She may buy 10 of them,
Right.
but you can't buy 1,000 of them.
No.
So you realize you have to go to some other people.
You do.
Well, what are some of the things that you're doing to help promote your book? In addition to being here with us, what are some of the other things that you're doing?
So I recently did a read for my son's class. So that was great. So his teacher bought my book and is showcasing it in his classroom. And another thing I'm working on is getting it into my local bookstores. I'm working with 2 right now to see if I can get it in there. And then I am looking to going to different book festivals. There's a Decatur Book Festival in here in Georgia that I am looking to be part of. So those are some of the avenues that I am using to promote my book. So
wonderful. And see, now that our listeners can hear that, we have listeners in the Atlanta area, and we are able to have listeners around the globe. But for our Atlanta listeners or anyone else, please let your friends know that Chinwe will be at the Decatur Book Festival. Go on out, see her, meet her, get a copy of her book. So you are also a pharmacist, which just kind of blew me away, because that is a tremendous accomplishment in and of itself.
thank you.
But you went from being a pharmacist, or you're still a pharmacist, but you are now a children's author. How did that evolution happen?
I'm telling you, I wouldn't say this being an author is something that I have worked on from being a little girl. That would not be true. This just came out of being a mom, being a mom, trying to help my son get through his experiences. So it's been a wonderful journey. Motherhood brings out a lot of things, and this just happens to be one of them for me.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to Authored by Us. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review so you never miss an episode. Now back to the show with your host, Zenzi Hodge.
So Chinwe, tell us where we can find your book, Do You See the Monster Under My Bed?
So my book is available on Amazon, and that's the only place it is available currently. And yeah, just order it. If you have Prime, it'll get to you in 2 days, and super easy.
As always, all of the books that we feature on Authored by Us can be found on our bookshelf. So you can go directly to our website and find Chinwe's book, click on the buy link, and it will take you directly to her Amazon page.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Chinwe, tell us, what do you hope will be the impact of your work that you're doing currently as an author?
I hope to bring stories that are everyday scenarios within the home. I hope to help. I want people to read my stories and either laugh or think of it as something that has happened in their home. And yeah, that's my hope for this story and the ones to come in the future.
So I know you were born and raised in Nigeria. How do you see your book getting over to your home so that children in Lagos or in other countries in Africa can celebrate reading this story and celebrate your journey as an author? Is that a part of your plan?
It is a part of my plan to get it on platforms that are accessible in Nigeria. I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to do that yet, but it is one of my plans. For right now, those friends who have asked me for it, I have just shipped it to them through family that have been going home. But that is part of my plans, to have it on a platform that would be easily accessible to those outside Amazon circle of distribution.
Because you mentioned that you read at your son's class, and I know he was probably over the moon because his mom was reading her book in his class to his friends. And I can just imagine children who are where you're from, who are now sitting in a classroom that you may have sat in when you were a kid,
Right.
reading your book. I think that will be such an inspiration to them.
It will. It will.
What has been the greatest influence on you as a writer and on your writing?
Most definitely my children, really. I do read a lot, but my children have definitely been the impact, picture book wise and children's book wise, because I find myself trying to pick stories that I know would be memorable to them, because you don't want them to read just the words and not remember the story. You want them to remember the story. So they have been my inspiration in my writing journey, and also reading to them.
Now, since you mentioned memorable books, I always ask my authors, what was the book that had the biggest impact on you when you were growing up?
So when I was growing up, I found myself very attracted to books written by African authors. And the book that I enjoyed the most is called Adventures of Susa. It was part of our African book series, and it was about a little boy who was very mischievous, and he got into all sorts of trouble. And I just enjoyed the stories, and they cracked me up whenever I read it. So that was my one book that I really liked growing up.
Well, as you enjoy The Adventures of Susa, I know that some young reader is going to remark years from now that Do You See the Monster Under My Bed had the same type of impact on them when they were growing up.
I hope so.
Oh. Chinwe, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. It was a pleasure talking with you, hearing about Chuka and hearing about your book, Do You See the Monster Under My Bed?
It was a pleasure as well. Thank you so much.
As we close the cover on this bookshelf gem, I'd like to thank our author this week, Chinwe Mbono, for sharing with us her book, Do You See the Monster Under My Bed? I would also like to thank you, our wonderful audience, for joining us. We invite you to join us next week as we introduce a new author sharing their book. Until next time, happy reading.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Authored by Us. Every author has a story to tell, and we enjoy bringing their stories to you each week. Whether you are listening as a young reader or are sharing this podcast with the young readers in your life, we are delighted to celebrate these stories inspired by diversity and shared in the voice of their authors. Follow us on social media at Authored by Us and subscribe to our podcast using your favorite podcast app. That way you never miss an episode. Have a gem on your bookshelf that we should have on ours? Visit us online at authoredbyus.com and let us know. Until next time, happy reading.